What's going on YouTube? It's Hook'em the Bot here, and I'm coming to you with another Division 2 video. In this video, we are going to discuss my PvP build that I use that y'all have seen in multiple videos. This is the same build that is truly hated on, that I get accused of cheating with, reported. People beg for me to take this shit off, consider it cheesy, and other more bullshit. I'm gonna go so in depth with this video that I should be able to answer any possible questions that you might have regarding this build. I will be going over the idea of it, the thought process of it, why I came up with it, how it works, how to counter it. Yeah, you heard that right. I'm going to tell you how to counter this build. And even when I tell you how to counter it, 99% of the player base will still fuck it up. And I'll explain why. So enough of the bullshit. Let's go ahead and get right into it. This is my PvP build. Let's start from the top, and we're going to work my way to the bottom. At the top, we got the firewall specialization. I'm using this specialization not for because of the medkit. I'm using it strictly because of the underrailing mod that I can put on my AK, which gives me that 15% critical hit damage. The main weapon that I use in this build is the military AK. I have this thing sitting at 27% expertise, and I'm running strained on it. The next weapon is the Lady Death. This weapon has its own purpose for it, and I will explain that as well. The pistol, it is the Orbit, which comes with the talent Perfect Finisher. The mask, I have One Piece Walker with armor, critical hit damage, chance, and damage. One Piece Fenris with weapon damage, chance, damage, and damage with the talent Unbreakable. An improvised holster with armor, critical hit chance, damage, and damage. One Piece Seska with armor, critical hit chance, and damage. One Piece Grupo with armor, damage, and chance. And the star of the show, the Memento Backpack. Alright. The skills that I use is a decoy and a pulse and or jammer. I say and or jammer because in between fights, when I'm running solo, I'm constantly switching between these. Let's go ahead and roll over to the stats. Alright. I have 58% critical hit chance, 181% critical hit damage, and 75% headshot damage. Okay? So remember, take those numbers into account, mainly the critical hit damage. So we are starting with 181 base. Nothing procced, nothing activated. Just raw, dirty fucking damage right there. Alright? Now, if you go over to the fucking AK and you look at strained, gain plus 10% critical hit damage for every 0.5 seconds you are firing. It stacks up to 5 times. Get your handy dandy calculator out. 10 times 5, basic fucking math, that gives you 50. Let's go ahead and add that 50 on to the 181. That puts us at 231% critical hit damage. Okay? Now, I have the Orbit with the talent Perfect Finisher. Swapping from this weapon within 10 seconds of killing an enemy grants 35% critical hit chance and 40% critical hit damage for 15 seconds. That enemy counts as anything you can kill, including skills. So, we were at 231% critical hit damage with strained, right? Now, let's say some asshole decides to put down a hive. We pull this little handy dandy pistol out, we shoot it, and swap back over to my AK. We now are going to be attacking that person with 58% critical hit chance, and 271% critical hit damage. Now, will you always get the 271%? Fuck no, you're not. It is very situational, and you have to know what you're doing. The 231 is more likely, because with my primary weapon being strained, I'm going to be using this and shooting it and gaining those stacks as I'm fighting. So that 231 is more likely to happen than the 271. So here's the build. You saw the stats for it. You saw the damage numbers for it. Now let's go ahead and get into the idea behind the build. So why did I make this build? I designed this build with a thought in mind of actually soloing the Dark Zone. And I asked myself, how the fuck am I going to fight multiple people with enough damage that has enough survivability and can capitalize on other players' builds to make this build stronger? I had this build written down on paper, and as anyone knows, you can have some shit written down on paper and then you go to test it and it performs like shit. So I started with, where do I want my damage? I went into the Dark Zone, fought, lost a shit ton of times, but I finally found where the hell I wanted my damage. So the damage question was answered. Now I needed survivability. I began at 1.4, then 1.5, and ended at 1.9. And I noticed that 1.4 was way too fucking soft and I was being taken down faster than I can take others down. 1.5 was almost getting there, but not quite. And 1.9, it was just too fucking tanky and it was taking too long to bring someone down. So I finally settled at 1.7. My base damage was enough for initial engagements, plus I was tanky enough for those higher DPS builds. So now that my armor and my damage question was answered, it came down to how the hell am I going to take advantage of other players' builds to make this build stronger? I looked at every fucking meta build, every piece, and I just couldn't find anything. I couldn't find a way to do it. Until I was fighting one player and I shot out his skill and I noticed that a trophy dropped. At that point, that's when my eyes opened of what this build's true potential could be. Which brings us to the Memento Backpack. If you look at my build, its armor is at 1.8 million. My base damage is 137.2k. So let's go ahead and slide over to the Memento Backpack and we'll look at the talent. Kill confirmed. Enemies you kill drop a trophy on death. Collecting trophies provides both a short and long-term buff, the first of which scales with the number of core attributes equipped, and that lasts for 10 seconds. One red attribute is plus 5% weapon damage, one blue plus 10% bonus armor, one yellow plus 5% skill efficiency. So if you look at my build, I have 5 blue cores. That means that I'm getting 50% bonus armor that lasts 10 seconds. So collecting one trophy brings my 1.8 million armor to 2.7 million. I also have 2 red cores, which means I get 10% weapon damage for 10 seconds. So collecting one trophy brings my weapon damage of 137.2k to 150.92k. Alright? So now let's look at the rest. For every trophy collected, gain an additional plus 1% weapon damage, plus 1% skill efficiency, and plus 0.1% armor regen for 300 seconds or 5 minutes with a maximum stack of 30 stacks. So that means my weapon damage right here of 137.2 with full stacks will bring it to 178.36 plus every one trophy I pick up adds an additional 10% weapon damage onto this build, or onto the AK, which then brings it to 196.19 weapon damage. Plus 3% armor regen without ever having any armor regen pieces on here. So at this point, I'm thinking, oh fuck, I got myself a nasty ass build going on here. I now have the damage and the survivability issue solved, plus I found a way to take advantage of another player's build. Because if you think about it, what is the most used skills in the game currently? Hives, defender drones, turrets, decoys, and seekers. So what if I told you that every single one of these that I just listed could be shot out and or jammed to release a trophy for you? Now I did notice that sometimes it does work and other times it doesn't. So it's kind of finicky on that. So I'll let you know that right now. So with that being said, of it not working, you might ask, well, what if it doesn't give you a trophy? If it doesn't give you a trophy, how in the hell can their build still make this one stronger? In that case, that's when we come to the orbit. This talent is guaranteed to activate upon killing NPCs, NPC skills, players, and or player skills, no matter what skill they use. Minus the foam and the sticky bomb. If you can shoot it out, this talent's going to get activated. And like the talent says, swapping from this weapon within 10 seconds after killing an enemy, that enemy includes actual enemies and their skills, you're going to get that 35% critical hit chance and 40% critical hit damage for 15 seconds. Alright? And if it does work and gives you the trophy, you now are getting 40% critical hit damage added on to what you already have, plus you're getting that trophy giving you that bonus armor and that weapon damage. So you're getting best of both worlds at that point. So when I came up with this idea and put it into play and tested it and saw that it worked, I now went into the next phase of my testing. Is, let's say a player doesn't want to use these skills, or any skill for that matter. Alright? What is one way that I can take advantage of something that they cannot control? Let's get into the next portion. Now, with that title, you're probably thinking, Hook, why the fuck would I care about biology and neuroscience in a fucking video game? But you seem to forget. Remember, when I said I made this build, I looked at everything. So when it came to testing the build, I did 4 things. I fought 1, 2, 3, and finally 4 players at once. I took note of their reactions. Were they aggressive? Passive? Did they pop kits? How often did they pop those kits? What was their play style when they had a full team? And what changes were made when their teammates started dying? I did this multiple times until I finally saw a pattern, and that's when I made my final changes to the build based off of what I was seeing that the other players were doing. So let's say a player finally kicks in and they're like, hey, I noticed that every single time I use a skill, he's getting a trophy. Well, I'm going to stop using skills, that way he can't take advantage of it. Well, that's fucking wrong. As I mentioned before, I asked how can I take advantage of things that the other player cannot control? Well, in these clips, I'm going to go ahead and explain it. So go ahead and check it out.
detected. Now detecting content.
You're a cheeser. Are you fucking kidding me, bro? You cheese the shit out of this game every day now. Anytime anybody sees you, that's all they say is like, nah, I'm good on the momentum.
Now, you've already heard the thought process of how and why I made this build. You saw how I managed to take advantage of things that the player cannot control. This brings us to the final portion of the video that I told you I promised I would show you, and that's how to counter this build. And it's easy. 3 simple things that you just have to follow. So here are Hook'em's 3 awesome tips to counter this build. Tip number 1. Do not let me kill any NPCs or their skills. Tip number 2. Do not let me shoot out and or destroy any of your skills.
Detected.
And tip number 3. Do not let me kill any of your own teammates.
Hostile shot. Contaminated gear detected.
And that's it. That's how you counter this build. But like I said at the very beginning, I've given these tips before, and people will still fuck up on it. Because I know if we're fighting and I manage to drop your armor, you're going to want to pull back. You're going to want to re-kit. You might even decide to pull out a defender drone to maybe mitigate some of that damage, or drop a hive on the ground. And at that point, you've already fucked up, because I'm going to jam your shit, shoot your shit, collect a trophy, or activate orbit, which is going to give me more damage. But hey, it's up to you if you want to do those things. But I've told you how to kill it. But 99% of the time, you're going to fuck it up. But that's the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. If you put the build together, have fun with the build. Alright? Until then, I'll see you all in the dark zone. If you like the video, drop a like. If you're unsubscribed, subscribe. Dislike the video. Do whatever the fuck you like. Until then, I'll see y'all later. And for those that want to kill me, you know where to find me. Hook 'em out.